Hi, and welcome to Inside the Naval Postgraduate School. From Monterey, California, I'm your host, Alan Richmond, here on the Pentagon Channel. Well, in this episode, we'll introduce you to the newest inductee into the NPS Hall of Fame. We'll also showcase a new agreement between a local community college and the Naval Postgraduate School involving local students. First, we want to focus on a fuel energy initiative and a patent developed here at the Naval Postgraduate School in support of the Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mabus, and his energy initiative. Here's Captain Jeff Kline. Well, Jeff, first of all, thanks very much for appearing here on Inside NPS on the Pentagon Channel. We appreciate it. Now, you've had a very distinguished career as a naval officer and, in fact, spent some time on the USS Aquila. Tell us a little bit about your experience as captain.
Well, that was a great opportunity to have a junior command as a lieutenant commander. It was a chance to learn a lot that I needed to learn to take command of larger ships. It was a great crew. There was only 25. They were all volunteer. And it allowed me a certain sense of freedom to exercise some of the things that I learned here at the Naval Postgraduate School.
Well, of course, you were a student here at the Naval Postgraduate School, and then that led you to the Aquila, correct?
I was a lieutenant commander. I came here a little bit senior, went through the Operations Research Department and learned the applied mathematics associated with that, and thought that I would apply that someday and on a follow-on tour, not a sea tour. But instead, I had the opportunity to command that hydrofoil. It does have two engines, a gas turbine engine that makes you go very fast but uses a lot of fuel. You go fast, you go far, but not very long because it uses a lot of fuel. It has diesel engines, or had diesel engines, that went very slow, didn't use much fuel, and you could patrol forever on them. So when I got in command, I noticed that this was a model that was addressed somewhat in our operations research classes, what's called a linear program. You can either go real fast or real slow, or a combination of both. And based on a fixed distance and a fixed time, you can pick out the best combination of going fast and slow to save fuel. So I put together what would be called a simplistic spreadsheet model to apply toward that hydrofoil and started to use it in my command tour based on what I learned here. In fact, it would be considered a toy classroom problem, so much so that I wrote that up as an example and sent it back to the postgraduate school to one of our professors and said, look, see what I did with what you taught me.
Well, along the way, you obviously caught the attention of someone higher up the chain. How did that all fall into place?
Well, I started getting impressive fuel savings as opposed to relative to the other hydrofoils in the class. Our Commodore noticed that we started getting fuel savings, and so he sent his combat systems officer down to the pier to ask to go through the plant, to talk to the engineer and me, to find out what we were doing different. Our schedule was the same, and yet we were getting 5 to 10% savings in fuel over the other ships. He thought it might have been a mechanical issue, and he wanted to capture that mechanical issue. I knew that it was simply an extended use of this little fuel planner that I designed and provided to my navigator and engineer, and we executed our operations based on that. We provided that. I showed him the spreadsheet. I showed him how simple it is to use, and we gave that to all the other hydrofoils, and they started using it. Unfortunately, about 3 or 4 months later, we decommissioned all the hydrofoils, so we didn't get an extensive use out of the planner, but we enjoyed at least some fuel savings while it was there.
Well, this really is very timely because it coincides with Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus and his energy plan, doesn't it?
Well, interestingly enough, when I returned to the postgraduate school as an active duty Navy captain in the senior military faculty, one of our faculty operations research department, Dr. Rosenthal, handed me the very letter I wrote him as a lieutenant commander, showing me that he had kept it all these years. Another professor, Dr. Al Washburn, brought to me fuel curves and said, you know, you can do this more than just with the PHM. We think we can do this with conventional plant ships too. And it has to do with the characteristic of the fuel curves. There's certain regions where instead of going the best economical speed, sometimes, based on the distance and the time you have to get there, going a combination of fast and slow, even on a conventional ship, will save you fuel. So we wrote this up as a journal article and submitted it in operations research. It was published, and then later we received a patent for the concept and the methodology. This is perfectly in line with the Secretary of the Navy's initiative because we think that doing things smarter has the potential to actually save fuel using these basic principles and concepts.
Well, it obviously also ties in with the new energy curriculum here at the Naval Postgraduate School.
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, Secretary Mavis set up that curriculum. What we hope to do is capture several students from that curriculum and employ this planning technique to the littoral combatant ship squadrons. We're going to enter, and in fact, we've started discussions with them to get their fuel curves, develop a planner, have a student do one of those, developing the planners for them, and then employ them on the ships to see if they get similar fuel savings that we did from the hydrofoil experience.
Well, most recently, you obtained a new patent. Can you give us an overview of that?
It's a government patent, a U.S. government patent for the Navy. We decided to apply for a patent to ensure that the government would own the rights to the concept and we can employ it any way we want to, including giving it to industry if they want to fold it into a larger set of planning tools. It's a very unique patent in the sense it's a conceptual patent. Although it's based on mathematics, it's not a technical tool or something you can hold. It's simply a method that you can utilize based on the characteristics of plants, engineering plants, to actually save fuel. So in a way, it's both unique in the sense that it's conceptual. It's also unique, and we think it's the first government patent that the Operations Research Department has received at the postgraduate school.
Well, Jeff, this seems to have some pretty far-reaching effects into the future, especially from a monetary perspective. Where are we going with this?
It's a very good question, and that's part of the research topic that we're going to explore with the LCS squadron. We predict that consistent use of this technique might save anywhere between 2 to 6% on any transit based on fuel itself, consistent use. Now that is to have several assumptions that the ship is free in their independent transits to utilize the recommendations of the planner. In some cases that's not true. Many times our ships are out there doing missions and their speed is dictated based on tactical considerations. But if they consistently use the transit planner, we believe we could get up to 6% per transit savings of fuel, which equates to a large amount of dollars over years based on the number of ships that deploy it.
Well, this has some pretty tremendous impact on the way ahead for the entire future of the Navy, doesn't it?
Oh, certainly. This is a combination with many different initiatives that we're looking at from alternative futures. As most of us know, DoD is the #1 consumer of fossil fuels in the United States, and the United States is the #1 consumer of fossil fuels in the world. So anything we can do, whether it is a method, a concept, or a technology, or an alternate fuel to save fuel, makes us a stronger Department of Defense and a stronger nation.
Well, as a former student here at the Naval Postgraduate School and now a professor, this must have a pretty profound effect on you personally.
Well, I really think that's why the Naval Postgraduate School exists. Our primary mission is, of course, education of officers, but that education of officers is specifically in order to provide the payback and the fruition of their lessons they learn here to apply in the Navy. And I think this is just one example of that.
Well, we often hear about the critical thinking skills that are taught to students here at the Naval Postgraduate School. I'm sure that had something to play in the work that you're doing and how it led to this patent, didn't it?
Yes. In fact, having the latitude of being the commander of a small PHM, I was able to try something out of the box without anybody's permission but my own. That provided me a certain amount of latitude. And yet, at the same time, many of our officers find themselves in their position, and a simple analysis or critical thinking applied can have large effects. And we hope this is one of those.
So as we look down the road, what's the way ahead?
The real way ahead is incremental steps. We'll engage the LCS RON down in San Diego. Working with them and their leadership, we will apply their fuel curves to this planner. Then we'll ask for them to start to employ the planner in their operations. We'll learn two things that way. First, because the LCS has similar propulsion plants as the PHMs, we think that it's a natural fit for them. But one thing we'll learn is, will consistent use actually save fuel? Do their fuel curves actually lend themselves to this concept? And will their operations allow them to use the planner? By testing all three of those concepts, we'll understand the real potential behind applying this mathematical concept to saving fuel.
Well, I'm sure there's more to this story to come, Jeff, and we'll follow along with you closely. Thanks for taking time to be on the show.
Great. Thank you very much, Al.
Well, special thanks to Captain Jeff Kline here at the Naval Postgraduate School. Well, coming up after the break, we'll talk about the NPS Summer Intern Program in Hartnell College. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside NPS here on the Pentagon Channel. Well, recently the Naval Postgraduate School, in conjunction and association and collaboration with Hartnell College in nearby Salinas, developed a summer intern program. We had a chance to talk with some of the NPS professors involved as well as some of the Hartnell students.
My friend told me about an internship class that he had enrolled in, and I didn't really know what it was about, but I knew that he had been in an internship before, and I thought that was really cool, so I figured I'll take it. And I took the class, and my professors were really great, and it turns out they knew people at NPS, and one thing led to another, and I got an internship there. It seemed, upon entering the course, it seemed as though they were just preparing us. They were telling us what we would need to know in order to be able to succeed and communicate in a scientific community. But over the course of the actual class, it became obvious that, oh wait, they know that we're going to be in internships. All of us went to an internship. We had a sort of a speed dating thing, and we'd have a one-on-one, about 2 to 5 minute conversation with a random professor, and they would tell us a project they were doing, and the whole point was to get to know the professor and for the professor to get to know you, and if you got along and you were interested in the project, then that's what you were going to do.
It's a project that has a very basic physics in it. It's based on this toy, on the which is called the cruise radiometer. It's a set of 4 vanes that would rotate when illuminated by either sunlight or an incandescent lamp. And the physics that is behind this little toy has a fabulous historical background. Very important people had been involved with it. Einstein, one of them. Maxwell, the person that came up with the theory of electricity and magnetism. Crookes himself, and then all these really big figures in the field of kinetic theory of gases and thermodynamics were fully involved in it. And while the toy is simple, the physics is very, very complex. And so one of the things that I was trying to sell to the potential interns was a way to approach the different aspects of the different mechanisms that are involved in the device that make it work, and try to isolate all those different components, contributions. So when I was trying to sell this to Aaron or other intern, I had to make it to them as a splashy kind of topic, so that they would come back with interest. In the case of Aaron, he came back with questions. More than interest, it was a series of questions that reflected a lot of the insights that he had and that he actually brought into the project. Once Aaron came into the lab, we discussed the 2 ways to isolate the 2 main mechanisms responsible for the motion of the vanes when illuminated by an incandescent light. And the dedication to the project that he had was amazing.
I had never actually, it's very different to work on a real life project than something you do in school, because you set your own goals. You are your own boss, and I think that's the most liberating thing about it. Originally, the plan was to just identify the driving forces, but eventually the project became applying them. So now that we've identified what the mechanism is, now we can conceivably harness that power, and hopefully to power something. And I think it's really exciting.
This is the work of Aaron, and this was something that he would, carefully spend hours on it, drawing the slots, cutting them, making sure that there was a good deposit of blackness on one side and white on the other side. You cannot get you cannot get that kind of dedication without internal motivation. And what fascinated Aaron was that he was coming into a project that had a lot of basic physics built in, and that had a lot of questions unanswered, and that he was going to provide with his hard work and insights. He was going to provide venues of understanding the mechanisms much better.
Originally, we didn't know how to behave around each other, and because he didn't know how far my education in science or math was, and I was afraid to ask a dumb question, but turns out that the dumb questions are the ones that help us get further, and it's actually what helped the project kick off even faster. If I hadn't suggested, well, why can't we just print black on a sheet of paper, on a sheet of photo paper, then we would probably still be trying to apply the carbon nanopowder to it.
In the case of Aaron, I think I see him as a, day-by-day kind of person. He builds from the experience of the day. At least that was how I saw him in the lab. And, as a student in Hartnell, he's probably just doing the same thing, just getting involved with his courses one at a time and trying to extract an experience out of that.
Anyone can do it. Anyone can. It's not that it's easy. It isn't easy. It takes effort, and you have to be ambitious.
We have a unique opportunity, and we have to really nurture it. We have students that are excited, but their excitement is not raw. I mean, it comes with interactions among themselves. They come here after being negotiated in a classroom, where they have been told what are the main protocols that they have to approach when it comes to basic research or applied research. I think I probably benefited a lot more than he. I hope he can pursue a little more of this project.
I'd say that my time at NPS has helped me realize that I do want to get a career in research.
Well, obviously, we're off to a great start with this summer internship program between Hartnell College and the Naval Postgraduate School. We'll be bringing you more success stories in the months ahead. Well, coming up after the break, we'll introduce you to the newest member in the NPS Hall of Fame. It's a name that you've probably heard before. Stay with us. Recently, we inducted another new member into the NPS Hall of Fame. Dr.J. Phillip Jack London is Executive Chairman and Chairman of the Board of CACI International Incorporated, a $3.8 billion information technology and professional services company now celebrating its 50th year in business. CACI is a public corporation listed on the New York Stock Exchange, employing 14,300 people in more than 120 offices worldwide. Under Dr. London's leadership, CACI has grown from a small consulting firm to become a national pacesetter in IT and communication solutions. Dr. London is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, 1959, and the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School, 1967, where he earned, respectively, a Bachelor of Science in Naval Engineering and a Master of Science in Operations Research. During his 12 years of active duty as a regular officer, Dr. London served as a naval aviator with the U.S. Navy Hunter-Killer Task Forces arrayed against the Soviet Union's nuclear submarine threat. He saw service in the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was with the Airborne Recovery Team for Colonel John Glenn's Mercury Program Space Flight in Freedom 7 in the Caribbean on February 20, 1962, while on board the USS Randolph. Later, at the height of the Vietnam War, he served as aide and administrative assistant to the Vice Chief of the Naval Materiel Command, Department of the Navy. Dr. London left active duty in 1971 and joined the U.S. Navy Reserve, retiring as a captain in 1983, having served as commanding officer of aeronautical engineering units with the Naval Air Systems Command in Washington, D.C. Well, Dr. Jack London, you are also one of the inductees into the distinguished NPS Hall of Fame. And welcome back home and congratulations.
Delighted to be here. It's a wonderful experience, and we're having a great go of it, and I'm looking forward to this afternoon's program.
Wondering if you can tell us how you feel about receiving this honor.
Well, it's most impressive. I am quite honored, a little bit surprised in some ways, and very humble.
Well, you've certainly had a very distinguished career. Talk a little bit about your time in the Navy.
Oh, the most important thing, I think, was the time at which I was in the Navy, which was the late 50s and throughout the 60s. A decade of a lot of trauma and turmoil, of course, the Vietnam War. Within the military services itself, we had all of the issues that having to do with the Soviet Navy and the challenges with the Soviet military forces. And I had the opportunity to serve in a submarine business, which was tracking and going after the Soviet submarines with a nuclear threat, missiles and warheads.
Well, of course, after you retired, you've had a very distinguished career in business, haven't you?
Well, of course, I've been with CACI International actually 40 years now. I'm in my 40th year, and was a CEO for 23 years. I've been chairman of the board for 20 years. We've built our corporation focused on serving in the national security arena. Today we have 14,000 employees. We have a New York Stock Exchange Corporation, and our main focus, as I say, is in the national security field. 90% of our work is in that area.
Well, when you look at your military history and your professional history, there's quite a parallel there in terms of national security, isn't there?
I like to think of it like that. I've thought of my professional career in this industry as in some ways, a continuation of what I was doing on active duty and during my service years. I believe that we have a culture and ethos in our corporation of service. We have some 2,400 individuals that have former veterans. We, for example, we have 584 disabled veterans on our payroll. So we understand the military, the national service, the intelligence community. We have a good knowledge of their interests and requirements, and I think we provide a valuable solution to a number of their challenges, and I'm very proud of what we do.
Well, as I mentioned, you're an NPS alumnus. How does it feel coming back home?
Oh, I have a lot of memories. In fact, when I was putting some thoughts together for our program this afternoon, it was like a walk down memory lane. Of all the things that were going on at that time. I mentioned the Vietnam War. Up here at Fort Ord, of course, we had the infantry small arms firing range, and that was going 24/7 during that time, during the build-up. Here at the postgraduate school, it was a very serious time. The war was building up. There was the Red China threat. We had a dramatically different kind of environment, I think. So as I come back today, I see a school that's vibrant, full of enthusiasm. I've had an opportunity to visit with some of the students. It certainly projects a positive image, and one I'm very proud of. And of course, my day, the technology was different, and the world of computing is the most dramatic example of how things have changed. But I think the institution is marvelous and provides a great service, and it certainly provided me with an opportunity to expand my career and open my eyes in terms of the world and what the opportunities were, how I could be of service.
What do you think keeps NPS so relevant today, and what sets us apart from other institutions of higher education?
I think the focus, and as I just was walking through Herman Hall, and I'm staying in Admiral Arleigh Burke's suite, and across the aisle there is the Admiral Watkins room, and I think the heritage is an important factor in this institution, and the fact that it is distinct and different. It does have its wonderful military perspective and heritage, and there are other fine institutions of higher learning in this country, many of them. But if you have a focus for the military and military needs and requirements of this great nation and a national security perspective, you will find an agenda here that is sharply tuned and focused in that direction. And that's certainly my experience, even back in the early 60s when I was here, mid-60s. The curriculum was focused into a military a perspective that I found extremely valuable, and I think that that is the distinction. That plus the fact that it has a very high standards of performance and in search of excellence. So I don't think you can beat it, frankly.
Well, sir, once again, congratulations, welcome home, and we appreciate your time here on the Pentagon Channel.
Thank you so much, yeah.
Well, that's it for this edition of Inside the Naval Postgraduate School. From Monterey, California, I'm your host, Alan Richmond. Take care. We'll see you next time on the Pentagon Channel.